Okay, welcome back everybody. Today we're going to take a look at the Amazing Yamaguchi Spider-Man by Revoltech. So this just came out, just arrived today, and looking online, apparently it's already sold out on a lot of places, so I'm glad I picked it up. In this special line, the sculptor Yamaguchi, I guess is doing a series of different characters. This Spider-Man, it's actually number 2. I believe number 1 was Ken, or something like that. I don't have that, but I believe that's what it was. So just taking a look at the package here, we've got some nice Spider-Man art all over it, and maybe if you can see behind, there's actually some nice Spider-Man art back there too, which I will show you once I open it up. The figure's looking good in there. We see some of the accessories he comes with and such, and I'll show you that once we open them up. It's covered with photos and art from the comics and the figure. We even got J. Jonah Jameson in there, very nice. And the whole thing is done up like panels to look like a comic book. On the sides, we've got some nice photos showing off the articulation of the figure. And here we can see he's got the changeable eyes, which is good. And then just showing off the posability. I've missed this, and I swear, I am never going to take it for granted again. Okay, Spider-Man. On the top, we've got the same stuff, same information, just more artwork. On the bottom, we've got the classic, with great power comes great responsibility. I'm Spider-Man. And then technical information. And at the back we've got a whole bunch of stuff here. So there's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man swinging into action. Here we can see them showing the features of the figure. Nice design, I like that, very colorful. His spider sense is never wrong. And then showing off all the different eye combinations you can do. It also lists all the parts, which of course we'll take a closer look at as well. But overall, it's a really nice box design. Easy to see the figure and very attractive. So let's crack them open, shall we? They've even got some nice little art on the inside of the box flaps here. That's great. Here's that back inside piece. That's actually really nice. That's almost its own little poster or something like that. I like the colors they chose there. And on the alternate inside flaps, we got that chibi Spider-Man, and then his chest spider design. So he comes with his directions just to show how to put the head on, change the eyes, all that kind of stuff. And in the bottom was his stand and some extra wrist pegs. Let's check out all his accessories and then we'll break down the figure. First we'll go through all the hands. So here we've got some kind of grabbing hands, it looks like. Next we've got his shooting hands with good webbing detail. Those are carved in and then just filled in with a wash, I guess. And next is a pair of closed fist hands, I guess if you want them fighting. But also they have very small holes in the top that go a little bit in, so I guess he can grab something with that too. After that we've got this tray of eyes here. So we've got his really closed thinking eyes, big surprised eyes, and then I guess just a middle ground, maybe angry eyes. And on the back is a peg that should slide into his head, but I will show how that works in a minute. Next we've got these long webs, and I guess these are maybe for shooting, and it looks like his hands are going to grab onto those. After that is a pair of shorter webs. These also look like shooting ones, I guess, but they look like they can plug into his hand at the back, and they have these little handles here. So I'm going to have to figure out how those work, I don't know yet. And then inside this bag is some kind of, I don't know, I guess it's like a more rope-like web that we can tie around things. Because if you take a look here, it's actually looped through, kind of like a lasso. I don't know if that comes off. Let's see if we can undo that. Oh yeah. So you can just hook that out, I guess, hook it around something, and then pop it back through, and Spider-Man can hold onto this end, well this lassos onto whatever you want, so he could essentially hang from anything, I suppose. And that's just a soft plastic, but it doesn't seem like it's going to break or anything like that. Pretty sturdy. And then inside that plastic bag, like I said before, was his stand, so it's just standard clear, foggy plastic. And then this would plug into here, and then this would plug into the top to go around his waist. I might not put this together, because usually I don't use the stands, but it's pretty basic, easy to use. I was wrong before, I said this was extra wrist pegs, I think, but no, this looks like it's going to be for his shoulders, actually, because they got this double thing going on. And last but not least, we've got two items here. So this is a magnet, and this is going to allow him to grab onto stuff like fridges and things and look like he's climbing. And then it looks like this plugs into here, and I guess this is going to go together somehow, but I will take a look and see how that all works. So there's all the accessories. Let's check out Spidey. Oh, before I do that, I missed one accessory, some kind of little blue thing. I think this is going to be to get his eyes out. Here's Spider-Man out of the box. His articulation is crazy. He's got so much, and I'll get into that in a minute. But just checking out his colors, he's got almost a chrome blue. Not quite as much as it looks like on video, but it looks nice in hand. It looks good. The red is nice and deep. It's pretty accurate to the comics. He's got a good head sculpt. He's got a really classic profile there. Although this piece at the back does break that up a bit. And that's one thing about this figure. Because of the massive articulation, and Spider-Man being a guy who's basically just in one skin-tight outfit, it's very hard to mask his articulation in any way. So he ends up almost having this armored look a bit, which I don't mind, and I was aware of that before I got the figure, but maybe that would turn some people off. But generally, I think they did a good job on it, considering more than any other Spider-Man figure I've seen, this guy is able to get into all the classic poses. His webbing's good, it's all carved in, and we got the spider in the chest there. On the back here, he's got the classic round spider. These are the other hands he came with, which are his crawling hands. So when he's pushing against something, it looks accurate. He's almost got a McFarlane style design, I would say. Let's try switching out his eyes with one of the other sets, shall we? So to do that, according to the instructions, first we gotta pull off his face. Whoa, okay. This is a good chance to look at his neck articulation, actually. So he's got that sitting in there. This is a floating piece that goes on top, and then we've got his head. And behind, you can see the pegs where his eyes go in, and we're going to use this just to poke them out. Just like that. It's a bit difficult to get in there at first, but eventually they're not too hard to pull out. That looks like a luchador mask. And then you just choose a pair you like and pop them in. I'm a fan of the Steve Ditko style, so I'm going to go with the really small ones, but of course you could mix and match for kind of a Deadpool thing if you wanted. To switch out his hands is equally as simple. We just grab them by the wrist and at the base here and gently wiggle it off. Take your new hand of choice and slide it on. Just don't do too much pressure because you don't want to break it. I just noticed that there's a little hole there in the webbing hand, so that's where we're going to stick his line. So before we try out all his webbing, which I want to see how all that works, let's check out the articulation. At the base of his head, he can look up and down. It's pretty great, actually. Good range. He can look straight forward and side to side, quite a bit. Also at the base of his neck he has a joint, so that's as far back as it goes there, but it can come way down if you want a depressed Spider-Man, which happens sometimes in the comics. Actually looks pretty good. Then in the shoulders, they've got this double joint, I don't even know what that would be called, but that's the same as these pegs. And although it looks pretty odd, it gives him a huge range of motion. I think this is the first time I've had a figure who can completely hug himself like this. It's absurd. And he holds it too. I don't need to force it or anything like that. Which looks good for some action poses. It also has great range going back or going straight out from side to side in either direction, which obviously is going to come in handy when he's swinging around. He could also fold his arms behind himself, but then you start to get this very armored looking shoulder pieces here. But despite the odd sculpting here, he can get some really good range. His elbows have the same joints inside, so they can go straight out or almost all the way in, which could allow for some really casual Spider-Man. You saw his wrist pegs before, but they allow a pretty good range, so you can fold his arm in, out, up a bit, and down a bit. Just be careful with those pegs, that's all. So at the waist, he's actually built of 3 pieces. So, well, he's got his upper Spider-Man part, this floating ab area, this belt is loose, and then all that lower part. So he can go straight about that much, and then crunch in quite a bit. You can see a bit of it in there. If you were to bring his head down, you can get a super flexible Spider-Man. Actually, I was wrong. It can go back a bit more. You can crunch right back, which is nice. If you want, you can extend it a bit by pulling him out and get him even further, and you can start to see the insides there, how that works. That's really extensive. If you do it too much, you're going to start seeing his guts. So they got really creative with these legs because they had to get those kind of Spider-Man poses. So we've got his crotch piece, which is attached to here. Then we've got this hip piece, which, let's see, can kind of go forward and back. And then it allows this part here to go up and down quite a bit, as you can maybe see the inside there a bit. But it allows him to get full range, basically any direction you want. Now on his knees, you've got to be actually a little careful when you're bending these, because they've designed it in a way so when you bring them back, this ball here has to kind of twist a bit. So make sure you don't just snap them back right away, because you might break that in there. But if you take your time, you can get full articulation right there, right to the back. So he can literally get his foot over the back of his head if he needs to, or right behind him like that. And when you bring it back down, you just got to make sure everything lines up all right. But you can see there's a lot of separate movement there as well from the top, right around. He's got a bit of a depression here and here, so that allows them to fully close. Then onto the lower leg, he's got a cut there, which allows rotation. He's got a little ankle rocker too, but not too much. But because of all this articulation, that's not as big a deal, but yeah, I guess it's not too bad. And then he's got a little toe joint. So let's take a look at the webs and see if we can get him into some good poses. So just to show how those pegs work, those clear pegs there pop into his webbing hand like that, and that way it looks like he's shooting it out of his wrist when you've got it on. Of course, if you bend it too much, it's not going to work that way, but if it's lined up, it looks good. And here's hanging Spider-Man. He does it well, so that just fits into his hands there. Pretty easy. And then you line him up how you want. He can be upside down or he could be right side up. And he looks good. In fact, that would be a good way just to leave the figure for display, I think. Somewhere that he's not going to get in the way. And here he is sticking to the fridge with the magnet that was included. It makes a really nice effect. And he's just clipped onto the magnet under there with the clear piece wrapped around his waist. And then we got his climbing hands. You can also take the magnet off of the waist clip and plug it straight into his back, and that way he can just be relaxing on the side of a building or something. And I thought I'd just kind of show how he goes together, so you can really take him apart at any of these joints. You can pop them open pretty easy. Although if they broke, it'd probably be hard to get replacement ones because they're a really specific color. But you can just see how everything goes. And just for a size comparison, here's a 1/6 scale Hot Toys Amazing Spider-Man 2 figure, just to give you a sense of how big he is. Okay, well I think I've covered everything. This is a pretty extensive figure, so I hope I didn't miss anything about him, but that seems to be it. So if you have any questions, of course you can leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to help out. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.